Hello guys and welcome to week 10. In this week we're going to continue working on our Unreal scene, and we're going to start creating the layout and look at doing some more advanced shading, primarily for the rock at the center here. And we're going to be then start placing the layout and create some more complex lighting and hopefully add some fog to the scene. So now we're going to get started by looking at the scene that we've built last week and how we're going to continue working on it. So I have these four assets. I think last week we did these two, and then I added the wall here, the circular one, and this guy, and I have the same texture applied to all of them. I believe it's just the normal map and a diffuse texture, and we're going to look at how we can create some more complex shading for this guy. So going to select that and go to the material, and here I have the normal maps, the occlusion, and the procedural texture that we've created. Cool. So one thing that that is very important and I'd like to add is when I get close to these assets or to this one, there's no more detail. We're limited by how much details we have in the displacement. Let me show the detailed lighting. So as I get closer, there's no more normal maps or any details. And there is a way in Unreal or in real time to blend in between various textures as we get closer or farther away from the object. And that's called detailed texturing. And we're going to do it to the normal map, but you can also add it to the diffuse texture or any other textures that you want to change as the camera gets closer. So I'm going to hit tab and type in detail texturing, and this is what's called. It's called detail texturing, and we need to connect the normal, the current normal, and then the diffuse texture that we have. Okay, and then we can connect two secondary inputs: the detailed diffuse and the detailed normal. So for the normals, I did the quick Google search, detailed normal map. And you can see there is a lot of maps that we can use. It's important that it's tileable, so when we repeat it, we don't see any seams, and basically it's gonna blend into this texture and add the normal map from this guy. So I'm going to import the texture that I have, which is this guy. Let me drag it here. And I'm also going to import this texture, which is not ideal for the diffuse lighting, for the diffuse texturing, but I want to show you guys the idea. So let me drag this guy as well. And let's import both of them into the shader. So this is the new normal map, and then this is the new diffuse texture. And we need to convert both of them into a texture object, because we don't want them to be a texture sample. So convert both of these guys into a texture object, and I'm going to focus on the normal map for now. So here I'm going to connect the detailed normal, and I need two inputs: one for the scale, which I'm going to set to 1, and then one for the normal intensity to control how strong it is, this new normal map. So let's connect the normal. I'm not going to connect the diffuse for now, and you can see already it changed here. So let's hit save, and that will apply it. So it should be there now, and let me play with the intensity so we can see it changing here. So this guy, let's set it to 0, and there we go. You see it's off, and then 1, and is it because it's tileable, as we get closer it's going to reveal more of that. So I'm going to increase the scales. This controls how much repetition we get from the texture, and let me set this to 0 to show you guys. See, now it's very smooth, and we're super close to the texture. So if we set it to 1, we can actually add the details. Cool. Let's add the diffuse texture. This we would need a better texture for this, but I just want to show you guys the concept. Let's hit save. We should see the texture appear as well here. So let's go to the lit version. And we need also the diffuse intensity. So I'm going to promote that. I'm going to set it to 1. And let's hit save. It's not very visible. Let's go higher. It should become more visible. Let's increase. Let's set this to 1. It's working. I'm not gonna, oh, I know why, sorry. I'm gonna connect it to the diffuse, that's why. We were not looking at the texture. Okay, so there's that, and then let's lower this to 1. And you can see the details now added. Obviously we need a different repetition for this texture because the tiling is not the same. And so for that, we would need 2 different detailed lighting, one to repeat the normal map and one for the diffuse texture if we wanted that. But I'm not too worried about the diffuse because the texture that we have has a lot of details. So I think this is good for now. Set it to 3. Okay, cool. So the next thing I want to do is I want to use something called the dot product. And we have the normals of the mesh, and this contains the normal of based on the geometry. So if we run a dot product with an up vector, we can create interesting masks. Let's right click here. Let's create a dot product. And I want the dot product between that, and then I want a vector parameter. And this guy I'm gonna set to 1 on the green, which means 1 on the y-axis. Okay, let's take a look at this map. See, now it's masking certain details. And if we change this color, let's say along the blue axis, the result is going to be different here. So the mask will be different. Yeah, see, it's different. So we're going to use the green for the y-axis. Okay, and then I want to color correct this texture based on the normal. So I'm actually going to do it here, and I'm going to create right click, and I'm going to mix between a blend between 2 colors. So the node for that is called blend 3 color blend. Okay, and I want the original diffuse, and then I want to multiply the diffuse by some kind of green color. Let's type in multiply. I want to tint it basically to have a green tint to create some kind of grass where the faces are pointing upward. So let me promote this. It's not a color, so let's create a parameter color. Sorry, vector. Yeah. Let's connect this, and let's set this to green. Something like that. And let's apply. See the result in the viewport first with the modification. So we have green version, and now I'm going to connect that to the B, and let's connect the alpha is going to be the result of the dot product. And there we go. It's masking between the 2 now. Cool. So where there is details, it's going to give us green color based on the normal map. We can actually, in Mantra, there is a way to bake the actual normal. This is the tangent normal, which is not very accurate. So we can bake the actual normals of the mesh into a map and use that. So now I'm using the these guys, the positive, to add details there. Let's try and use a -1 here to invert the results. You see if that gives us something. No, it does not. So let's try a different axis. Oh, we can go negative here. So we can actually go, we can set it back to 1. And let's multiply it by a negative value. And that should flip the normals. Yep. So it changed the location of the normals. And we can use these masks. We can create various masks using doing the a dot product between the normal map and various up vectors, and use those to vary the shading. Cool. So the next and last thing I want to add here is I want some specular and roughness. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to desaturate this texture here. Okay, and I'm going to, let's promote this guy. And let's take a look at the colors and see how they change. Set it to 1. So it should be completely black and white. It is not completely black and white. Okay, it is. The other information is coming from the light. Cool. So I'm going to use this as the specular color. And I'm going to use it as the roughness as well, which means it's going to be sharp reflection where there is white and rougher as the color gets darker. So I'm going to use it for both of those guys. Okay, let me connect back the color. And I'm going to add a multiply because I want the texture, I want to be able to control the intensity of the specular. So I'm going to add a multiply here, connect this guy, promote this, and let's set it to 2. And let's go back to lit and save this. And hit apply. Cool. So now it's not very reflective and we're getting more variation. Let's see. Yeah, something like that. See, we're getting some nice variation of the specular and roughness as well. Cool. The other thing that we could add is a clear coat to this to add a secondary layer. This is not very realistic, but I think it can add some interesting visuals to this to the scene. This is basically a second layer of reflection on top. I'm going to set this to 1. And I'm going to expose this as well. And let's set the roughness to 0.4. Let's hit apply. Added a very dark edge, so let's set this to 0.1. Yeah, I think the roughness was too strong. So something like that. And this is basically, I didn't do a lot of complex shading for this scene. But this is, I think this is a very good start for you guys. The most important part is to add the occlusion and the normal maps I found. If we turn all these off, I go to detailed lighting, and let's take a look at this asset here. The main important part is the normals, to be honest. The normals, and let's disconnect this. Break link and break link. and let's save. So these are the most important two things to get a realistic asset. That's the geometry that we have, and then with all these things added, we bring a lot of the cool details back to the mesh. So to me, I think interesting diffuse textures mixed in with some using this detail texturing and then some normal maps as well to add more details as we get closer to the surface. And I think that's pretty much it for the shading. Now we're going to move on to creating the layouts for the scene. So let's continue now. The first thing that I like to do is I'm going to create a circle that defines the size of the environment, and then use that circle to place the wall primarily, and then these assets and the center as well. So let's create a sphere. Let's place it at the center, and let's scale it to, let's say, 100 and 100. Sorry, I'm gonna set the z-axis to 0. I just want a disk, basically. Cool. And let's see, so that's good. And then I'm going to start placing this guy here around the edge of this. So let me change the perspective to top. And there's a very handy feature in Unreal to that you can alt and drag the asset, and it just makes a copy of it. So I'm going to rotate this, and I'm going to cover the entire surrounding with these assets. Okay. Right, almost there. And we can move the two together as well. And let's add one more. It's going to be overlapping, but I'm not going to worry too much about this. Okay, so we have the first. Let's take a look at this in perspective. Cool. Let's go back to the top, and I want to create another layer of this. So I'm going to select all these guys and duplicate them. Control C, Control V, and I'm going to scale them. Something like that. And I'm going to place a second ring on top of this, and then let's move it up. Cool. So this is already much bigger than the first circle that I made, but I think it's going to be cool. So let's make another copy of those assets. I'd like to make this this part taller. And let's Control C, Control V, and let's move them. And let's rotate them and place them back at the top. Okay, cool. Let's go to the perspective. All right, we have some high walls now, and everything's working as expected. Let's continue. I think I'm gonna scale this or hide it for now. The next thing I want to take this asset, and I want to create something here that intersects with this and basically forms a circle as well. So let's go to the top again, and I'm going to alt drag this. Actually, let's alt drag it multiple times. You have to unhold the key and then hold it back, the alt key. You can't keep it held up and keep pressing. Okay, so let's take a look at these. Let's go to Wireframe. and I'm going to try and randomize them. We can also play on the scale. We can scale them up, scale them down, of course. There's nothing crazy about this. I'm just copying the assets and moving them. And I'm going to select all these guys that we created, copy them, and I'm gonna move them and basically fill in another whole section like that, and then paste them again and do it one more time. Okay, let's take a look at the viewport. Nice. So I think it's cool. I'd like to add some more variation in terms of height, but I think for the sake of time, I'm gonna be fine with this. And let's turn on back the sphere that we added and look at the top camera. And I'm going to start copying the ground element. So this guy, we're gonna fill in the entire ground. So I'm going to leave a gap between this and the ground, and I'm gonna start copying this. And these guys, we have to make few adjustments before we start duplicating them. So I'm going to create a group of this element, and then I'm going to copy it by hand. Okay, so let's start rotating these guys. Scale them up. And let's go to the viewport, and I'm going to add some offset on the y-axis. Just move them up and down, create more variations. This guy up, this guy down. Okay, let's move this to the side. Sorry guys, there is nothing really impressive about this. It's just, it takes time to do it, so we're gonna give it the time it needs. Right, almost there. Top, and let's select the ground elements, all of them. Copy, paste. Let's try to fill in this arc. I'm going along this guy here. So I'm gonna paste this one more time. One more time. And hopefully last one. Then we're gonna add some more blocks to vary this as well. All right, so let's move some guys around. See, it's actually very packed, so we can't We can just move objects at the moment. Okay, let's fill in the center. I don't want to waste more time on this. I'm going to scale them up. Let's go to perspective. Cool. And let's move these guys up. This one down. This one up. And this one down. Okay. Let's fill in these gaps with some more blocks. And I'm sure you guys will have will spend more time on this. And let's move the main asset to the center. I'm not gonna duplicate, sorry. And let's take a look at the top view. Let's position it properly, maybe scale it a bit. To match the same axis. Let's go. Let's make sure it's not floating. Okay, cool. And let's see. I want to take this asset, and I'm gonna rotate it, scale it down. I'm going to move it down at the edge here, and let's go to the top again. I'm going to fill in this entire, well, not all of them, but most of it. So let's try to be faster about this now. It's faster to look at the unlit version, because it only contains textures and nothing else. The wireframe requires a lot of drawing, actually. And the card I have here is very old. I have 680 GTX, which is, I think, like 5 years old or something. So obviously I would love to spend more time on these and add proper variation to all of them, but for the sake of time, I'm going to try and go as fast as possible, because this is not, I'm not teaching anything interesting at the moment. But this is how it's done. Okay, almost there. Let's add another one for this section. Go to perspective mode. Cool, and let's vary the height a bit. Obviously I want to change the size as well, and rotation, and all the attributes to make them as unique as possible. I think we're almost there. I mean, in terms of layout, we're pretty much done with this. I only have a few more things to add, and we're going to be able to do that super quick with all these assets duplicated everywhere now. let's rotate this and move it closer. Right. And the light rig I have at the moment is the default one. I probably changed the color of the sun to have a warmer tone, but everything else is the same. Okay, so I think we're done. The last thing I want to add is I want to copy a few of these guys and rotate them to point outward. So let's change it, press the E shortcut and Alt, and let's rotate them 180 degree. That's correct. Let's go to the top and place them. Go to perspective. Move this guy down. Move this guy down. And obviously you guys will spend more time than 15 minutes properly doing this. All right, I think that's pretty much it. I'm gonna hide the sphere. And I think we're done in terms of layout with these. So let me build the lighting. And the reason we want this is Unreal does a global illumination pass on this. So based on all this geometry, it's going to generate an occlusion pass and an occlusion pass and a global illumination between all these rocks, and it's going to store that information as a light map using the UV coordinate of the mesh. And the better the UV usage you have, the more you're going to utilize this. If you have 50% coverage of the UV, you're going to be wasting 50% of the resources that you have. So texture packing is very, very, very important for real time and Unreal in general. Okay, so I'm gonna let this go, and then in the next video we're going to place some more lights to make this a bit more interesting, and I think that's pretty much it. So the build is now done, and this is with the light map baked in. And let's take a look and see, and go outside and take a look. And this is our environment fully lit with all the assets. Now I wanted to talk about this effect here. This is from the light map generation. That's global illumination happening. And then any interaction between the rocks or anything that's also coming from the Unreal Engine light map generation. And I forgot this piece here floating. I don't want to move it because that will make the that will invalidate the light map, so everything needs to be static. And I wanted to show the details that we have. I'm looking at the detailed lighting here, which doesn't have textures. If we look at the lit version, it has textures on it, and this asset has these green details added. And then let's take a look at the detailed lighting with no shaders, no textures. You can see this is the only one that has details as we get closer to it. That's because of the normal detailing. All these guys, once we get close to them, they don't have any extra details anymore. So that's very important to note. And then I wanted to talk about why this feels very it looks very natural, and we don't see any repetition. It's hard to see that. I mean, yes, you can, but it's not that easy to spot, especially that we haven't done a lot of changes or variation. And the main reason for it not to be this complex visually is because the assets themselves, they contain a lot of details. For example, this ground here is only made from a single asset, and we haven't flipped it. the other side of the asset has even more details. And the reason for this is because these individual elements, they're actually made of individual blocks. So this guy has a lot of details by itself. So when you copy them and intersect them with each other, you quickly start creating new shapes, and it's hard to spot the repetition pattern. And this is very important aspect of modeling in general. And I think with the volume workflow, this is something that we can easily achieve. And if you think about the fact that we've only created 1, 2, 3, 4 assets for this entire environment. I mean, yes, it still needs a lot of work, but I think with just 4 assets, we've this is definitely very interesting, and there's a lot of details. Okay, so let's play this. Let's take a look at it as if it's in a game. So we have all the collision actually, because our mesh is quite good. We have good collision meshes to work with, and this is our scene. And right now we're looking at it with textures, so we can type in this command, view lit _ detail lighting, and that will turn off any textures, and we can just see the shader. And I think it's very good at the moment. I'm going to add some more lights to make it feel more bigger in terms of scale. I think it does already, but we can make it feel a lot bigger. So let's do that. And I'm going to go up. Let's collapse all these groups. They just contain all the geometry basically. And I'm going to create a point light. Let's place it there. Let's move it up. And right now the sun is quite intense, so getting these guys to be visible is going to be will require us to increase the intensity quite a bit. Let's set this to 100. And let's change the color to have an orange tint. And this is the attenuation radius. I want to increase that. And I want to place few around this this rock here. So let's take a look at the lit version from the top, and let's copy this 4 times. Okay, cool. This is good. Let's place this one here. So it has intricate details to interact with. This one here. Sorry, move the. Okay, and this one, let's move it here. Right, let's add some more on the border. I'm gonna copy this guy. Let's go back to Viewport. I'm going to change the color to have a complementary color, so blue tint. And I'm going to reduce the sun intensity, the directional sun. I'm going to set it to 5. I don't want it to be too bright. And let's move these guys. Let's make copies of them. So here, I'm just going to place them along this ridge. Okay, something like that. F. This is cool. Maybe we can make a circle as well with these guys, but change their color. So let's do that. select the point light and go back to the top view. I'm gonna Alt drag and let me change the color of this to have something red. I want some more variation. So let's find it. This guy, let's change its color. Right. Okay, cool. So I think I want to turn off, let's try and turn off this guy, the directional sun. I'm gonna set it to 1. I'm gonna change the color to blue to represent a moonlight or something like that. Yeah, and then I'm gonna change the skylight to have a darker tone as well. So 0.1. And now we need, I think this is pretty much it for the lighting. I just wanted to add something interactive. And I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to compute the lighting now, and then we'll take a look at it in the next video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you in a bit. Actually, not play, but build. So this is the result of the light bake, and I have all these cold lights adding some interesting details to the scene. These are actually dynamic lights, so you can move them without having to recompute the light map. They're casting interactive shadows, which is very, very cool. But everything else, the skylight and everything else is static. And I think that's pretty much it. We saw some simple lighting, some shading this week, and then we saw how we can place these elements and create some cool scenes. The main thing that I wanted to point out is it's very important to spend the appropriate time in creating these assets. There is no secret about it. You have to create something that looks visually very rich and has a lot of details in it. And then once you have the high-res assets, I think it's very, very straightforward process to convert them into a low-res meshes, create the textures, and import them into Unreal, go through the shading process, and then place them and have your scene ready. And I think that's pretty much it for this week, and this is for the workshop as well. Thank you guys so much for joining this workshop, and hopefully I'm going to see some cool environments made using all this techniques that I've shared. Thank you guys, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.